I was scrolling through Instagram this week and I came by a post from Gyrostream, which is my favorite online music distribution company. I reckon they're so good, absolutely killing it. But anyway, they've done this survey, the Gyro survey, where they've talked to a bunch of artists about a whole range of things, from royalties to labels, and I found the label section of it really interesting. They kind of looked at, do you want to be signed to a label or do you want to remain independent? So I thought the results are super interesting. And then within that, like, why are people wanting to sign with labels and why are they wanting to stay independent? So I reckon there's a really good conversation around this that we're going to have today. I'm going to break down these stats and also kind of my thoughts in and around labels versus being independent. So hopefully this will help you figure out what you want to do for your music, but it might just be comfortable, might just bring you comfort to know where everybody else is sitting as well and what the general population feels about this label versus independent. So let's talk about it. Hey, I'm Craig from the Dot of That Studio, and this podcast, this YouTube channel is designed for musicians wanting to become artists. So people just wanting to take their music further and to do more and more with their music. I'm just trying to offer a bunch of resources and tips and tricks to help you get there. So I want to celebrate a bit of a milestone this week. I've made it to 100 subscribers on the YouTube channel, which for me is just massive. The fact that I've been able to help at least 100 people just with some value that I've learned over the years and I've been able to pass that on just means a stack to me. So if you're watching and you haven't subscribed, you're in good company if you do. 100 other people have kind of jumped on board and have been getting something out of From Musician to Artist, and I'm super stoked about that. And today we're going to continue that conversation around record labels and independent. So I think for the longest time, we've all been trying to get signed to a label so that we've got the financial support, we've got a bigger audience, and that kind of means that we're a real musician. You know, everyone else is just amateur, but the pros are signed to a label. And why there's still a massive element of that, and you've got like your Ed Sheerans, your Taylor Swifts, all your big guys are obviously signed to labels and they're not at an independent stage, but there is this kind of rise of independence. And I've seen a bunch of that, and I've noticed a trend for quite a while where, you know, musicians are making a really good money, really good money, just a single good money. Artists are making really good money independently. And I think the benefit of that is just being able to go direct to fan. So when you've got a label, there's middlemen and you're taking some of your profits, you're giving it to them. But when you're an independent, you can go directly to your fan and kind of meet with them on a more intimate level. And then that relationship back says any money that they pay for merch or for your music or for your tickets or whatever is going straight to you without a middleman. So there's definitely pros and cons of each. So these stats that Gyrostream have put together are just amazing. And I think that you might just get a lot of comfort knowing that you're not the only one kind of feeling this way, and that, you know, those stats kind of don't lie when you survey a big number of people and get some data back. So the biggest thing that they found, it was 65% of artists want to remain independent and 35% of people are wanting to get signed by a label. So I've noticed a trend kind of happening, and I was really surprised that it's that skewed. You know, 65 to 35 says, I'd rather actually stay independent than get signed to a label, which I think is amazing. But they actually dived in deeper and looked at, okay, so those 65%, let's dive into the stats of why they're wanting to stay independent. So first off, 79%, 79% of the reason that they want to stay independent is to regain creative control. And I think this is a big one, and something that kind of is a bit scary about the labels. If I sign to them, then they own me and I have to do whatever they want. And something I've often questioned with an artist that I'm just obsessed with from a production level, and also a little bit from marketing and this sort of thing, is Billie Eilish. So she's kind of had this persona about her for so long. And I've always wondered, is that the record label just cashing in on a demographic that is just obsessed with Billie Eilish? So everything that she now does kind of is speaking straight to that audience, you know, and that was your sad sort of outcast type females, which there is obviously a lot because they all came out and loved Billie Eilish, and you'd walk down the street and you'd see a bunch of girls with blue or green hair or whatever Billie was doing at the time. And I often wondered, is that the label taking creative control of this artist and kind of making her sellable? You know what I mean? And then to see that shift now where she's kind of gone a lot brighter, a lot happier, she's gone blonde hair, the whole thing, is that just her kind of changing and growing up or transitioning into another phase of her own life? Or is that the label saying, okay, we've got that audience, now let's try and get this one, and they've kind of shaped it into a new kind of direction? And I don't know the answer, but we all kind of get scared a little bit about, 79% of the people surveyed kind of I actually want creative control. I want to be able to do what I want to do and not just be told what to do by the label. So that could mean like, even your genre of music, the way you want to dress, the way you want to go on tour, all those things. We want to stay in control of that and not have to kind of be a puppet from a label. The next stat, which is quite surprising, is 15% of those people wanted to stay independent because of the financial opportunities they get from that. So like I mentioned before, that means like every ticket sale goes to you, every bit of merch goes to you. It also means you can do things like paid live streams, or you could do subscriptions where you might Zoom with some of your favorite fans, or there's lots of ways that an independent an independent artist can connect with their audience, and being independent means that you regain 100% of that money that comes in, that income. So 15% of these guys have said, I want to stay an independent artist because it's actually better off for me financially, which I think is super, super interesting. And the remaining 6% want to stay independent because they've had a bad label experience. So I think the fact that that's only 6% is probably a little bit surprising, although we're not all being signed to labels to kind of experience that. But we do hear those horror stories, don't we, where labels just completely rip you off. They the fine print on the contract means that they own you. I mean, we even look into the massive debacle that Taylor Swift has found herself in. I know that's a little bit different, but we kind of hear those and go, oh, do I really want to be signed to a label? Not only do I lose creative control, but just everything else around it is just sticky. And, we kind of see them as big, business people that just want to come in and make a heap of money off us and then kind of spit us out at the end. I know a stat, and I don't know if this is believable or not, but how many albums it took for Sebastian to actually break even after he won Australian Idol or came second on Australian Idol or whatever it was. And then all these contracts and labels. So the actual debt that he picked up from that apparently took him quite a while to kind of resolve. So we hear these horror stories and we've heard about bad experiences with labels. So 6% of people have had a bad experience before, so now they want to stay independent. 15% think it's better off financially to do that. And 85%, is that what it was? No. The other 79% want to regain creative control of their music. So let's have a look at why people are wanting to sign to a label. And again, I just want to say this isn't my research. This is all from Gyrostream. So you follow them on Instagram because you can get these little infographics. They've done a ton of things about the fairness of royalties from Spotify and a bunch of other stats that they've gained. But this is all just about the label versus independent. So artists want to sign to a label. 48% of those want more support. And this is what I see. I've seen this a lot where people, they really want to make sure that somebody knows what they're doing because we feel like we're imposters. We don't actually know what to do. We can write songs, we can record. When it comes to promotion and building our audience, we actually just don't know what we're doing. We're flying in the dark. And it's one of the reasons that I created this podcast, because most of the artists that I work with in the studio have that very question, like, how do I do this? Where do we go from here? So they feel like there isn't that support for the independent artist, whereas we know that if we sign to a label, they know what they're doing. So at least somebody in the room knows what to do when we're with a label. So 48% of people out of that, so this is out of the 35%. So 65% want to stay independent. Out of that 35%, 48% of those want that support that a label will bring. Next one, 17% of those want better exposure. So the labels have access to the radio stations, to the bigger audiences, to other bands that you might be able to get on the bill for a live show. So just better exposure opportunities. So 17% of people want to sign to a label so that they can get that better exposure. They can actually get their name out there much more effectively than that they would be able to do as an independent artist. And along with that, 17% also want better networking. So they might know more bands, they might know more recording studios, they might know more distributors. So just the network that the label will be able to create for them is kind of a draw card. So 17% better networking opportunities if they were signed to a label. I think networking is probably the hardest thing about being an independent artist, because you've really got to, it is a who you know rather than what you know sort of industry more often than not. So, finding those people and actually getting them to respect you enough as an independent artist can be a bit difficult. So obviously that's easy with a label. If you can say, oh, I'm with Universal, then all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, well, here's all the people that you need to know to get you where you want to go. So that makes sense that that's kind of a draw card to a label. Just 8% want the financial backing of a label. When you want to go to a studio and it might cost a couple of grand to get that single out, that a label is going to front that up to start with, and then you're going to have to pay that back with sales or whatever. But just that financial backing of a label means that you can do something that maybe you're unable to do as an independent artist. Maybe you just don't have the funds to chase it. So if you're signed to a label, they could at least inject a little bit of cash that you would have to pay back, but you can actually, it means you get started. It's like grabbing a bank loan to buy a house. It's very hard to kind of save up the full amount to buy a house, but we can get that financial backing when we partner with somebody else, even though that's going to cost us more in the long run during the payback. So only 8% though are looking into a label for that financial backing. Hope these stats aren't doing your head in, lots of numbers and percentages. So the next one is 8% want, I've forgotten, 6%. 6% want to feel more professional. So I guess that's that imposter thing that comes back when you're independent artist thinking, oh, I'm not actually real until I'm signed by a label. So I'm not going to be taken seriously. I'm just a bit of an amateur having some fun with my music unless I'm signed by a label, because that's where all the big boys are playing. I guess that's great that that's only 6% of people kind of feel that imposter. And I think what's happening is there is a shift to the independent artist. So that's becoming more and more normal, and we can kind of accept that a bit better, which I think is great, because the truth is, if you're writing music, if you're recording music, if you're performing music, if you've got an audience, then you are a real artist. You are a real musician. You don't need some little name under you like Sony or Universal or something to justify you being an artist. Because if you're creating art and people are appreciating that art, then you are a music artist. So the fact that that number's going down and the rise of the independent, I think is super, super cool. But these stats show 6% of people still wanting to feel more professional, and getting a label will do that for them. And the last one here, if you've been super good at maths, you'll know there's only 1% left, and that is that it's just a childhood aspiration. So maybe as a kid, you're like, one day I'm going to be signed to Sony. I'm going to do it. So you got 1% of people that are just chasing that childhood ambition, regardless of anything else. It's something they want to do. It's like a bucket list. I'm going to get that done. I'm going to get signed to Sony or whoever it may be. So I think an important thing to remember is that there's not a right or wrong. So this percentage, it's not a super even split, 65 to 35. More artists these days are wanting to be independent. And I reckon there's just so many tools available to make that happen. But at the same time, the big guys are on the label. So there's definitely more opportunities if you are one of those label artists. If you're happy to part a little bit with creative control and some of those other things that we mentioned, but there is no right or wrong. So wherever you feel you're at in your music journey, wherever you want to go with your music is totally okay, and you should chase that 100%. There's no right or wrong, but it's just interesting to kind of break these down, and hopefully you might feel a bit of comfort just hearing these stats that Gyrostream have kind of collected and correlated for us. And I found it super interesting just to kind of see where people are at. And it does confirm a lot of what I see locally here in my studio, just some people wanting to sign to labels, but more often than not, people wanting to be independent and chase it. So why don't you let me know in the comments where you're at? Would you rather be signed by a label, or would you rather remain independent? And maybe why? I reckon that would be super, super cool. Hey, give this video a like for me if you found any value from it whatsoever. I'm doing weekly that was my phone. It sounded like a screen smash. It didn't, we're good. Doing weekly videos, 15 to 20 minutes, just talking about this very thing, going from musician to artist and just leveling up as a musician, trying to get where you want to go with your music. So subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Join the 100 people that have already jumped on board. That would be awesome. Make some music this week, and we'll talk again soon.